made for people like this?
Yes, there will. We feel it's important to give the military department some flexibility in dealing with hardship cases. Let me give you an example. What we get under this new authority, under the old authority we could call up members of the selected reserve. That's the trained up drill status members of the military reserves and guard. You add to that under this new level authority the ready reserve. That's individual ready reservists, people who signed up for a military hitch. Let's say they signed up for an 8-year hitch and they didn't serve all 8. Now they're back, they're back home working in a civilian job. They still have some unexpired time of commitment to the military. So you could call them up even though they're not in a regular guard unit, even though they don't drill, even though they don't get paid. Well, you could have a thing where, let's say, there's 4 doctors working somewhere, and the Navy goes after 2 of them, and the Marine Corps goes after 1, and the Army goes after 1, and they take all 4 doctors out of this town or hospital or something like that. We've given the military departments the flexibility to deal with those sorts of things.
What this boils down to is that you can call about 200,000 more, right? You take
170,000 more. 170,750 more.
Right, but since you've reached the ceiling of, you were about to, let's see, you've called up 161.
You just, yeah.
Yeah, so 360 minus 161.
That's right.
Would there be a year's limit on their term of service as well, or have you decided that?
Yes.
Is it this is the new authority that the services had.
Right.
Is it anticipated that the services will more or less fully exercise this authority so that we will have 360,000 Americans called up under the reserve?
While the Secretary delegates to the military departments the authority to call up this maximum, he doesn't just snatch the numbers out of the air. He relies on them and says, how many do you think you'll need? So this is a number that each military department has drawn up. And they're going to be the ones that have to decide how many they're going to call up. And I don't know whether they intend to call up the maximum here. Okay, 1 or 2 more, and then we'll move on to General Kelly.
I just want to ask you one additional question on the Patriot, if we could.
Okay.
We just got some of the first pictures of the Patriots arriving in Israel.
Right.
Could you explain exactly the limitations, how this type of system works, what it's designed to do, and what it's not designed to do? There's a sense that maybe all of Israel could be protected by this, but I guess that's not the case.
Well, there's some limitations on what I can discuss in the capabilities. Let me, we've got some fact sheets on the Patriots. Let me, for the sake of moving on here, say that we'll offer those to you after the briefing.
Can you just clarify? I'm sorry, but
Sure.
just to clarify one further question on the Patriot. If I understood your answer to an earlier question, the intention, I may have misunderstood this, is the intention that Israelis will be trained to operate these Patriots that are coming from Europe, or are those only to be operated by Americans?
The Patriots that arrive today will be operated primarily by the U.S. troops who arrive with them. They will assist Israeli Defense Forces in operating them. I mean, we'll clearly work very closely together on these.
There's no intention to train the Israelis in operating them and turn over the operating of those weapons to the weapon systems to the Israelis.
That is correct. However, I must hasten to add that there is a program underway now to train Israeli Defense Forces on the Patriots, which they've already acquired. That's a separate matter.
Patriots. So as long as these Patriots are there to defend Israel against Scud attack, Americans will be there operating them.
Correct.
Another quick question on the Patriots, Pete.
Let me just amend my answer to Michael's question. That's the agreement which we have right now. Obviously, we can always go back and change it.
How much has the force that was the Patriot force that was in being in Israel before increased now?
That would require me to get into specific numbers, and I'm not going to do that.
I'm just asking, has it doubled? Has it tripled?
Yeah, I can't characterize it. Okay, last one, Mark.
Can you give us a status report on the Turkey's acquisition of Patriot missiles, where they stand on that?
I'll have to check on that. I don't know. Let me turn over now the operational questions to Lieutenant General Tom Kelly, Director of Operations of the Joint Staff, and also Rear Admiral Mike McConnell, who's the Director of Intelligence for the Joint Staff. And they can, you going to have a statement to Tom? Okay, they'll answer your questions.
We'll just say we're less than 3 days into the operation, and we're over 460,000 U.S. military in the theater.
General Kelly.
Sir.
Has there yet been any sign that the Iraqi troops in Kuwait have started to pull out? That's the goal of this whole thing, after all.
Kuwaiti theater, yeah, that's correct. No, I have seen no indication of any pullout by Iraqi troops.
Can you tell us, sir, about the reports that you're now going after the Republican Guards more energetically?
Yes.
Could you elaborate?
We'll try to hammer them just as hard as we can. The campaign is orchestrated. The first objectives represented certain things: command and control, air defense, air superiority. We're beginning to achieve some of that, so as the chairman said on TV, we can begin to shift the focus of the air campaign somewhat. Doesn't mean we're going to stop doing what we were doing initially. Yes, sir.
General, does Iraq hold any prisoners of war?
Not to my knowledge.
General, U.S. or anyone else? Any other allied forces?
I think they've still got some Iranian prisoners of war. I'm not sure about that, but I don't know that they hold any prisoners of war from the Allied force.
Follow up on that. An Iraqi diplomat was called to the State Department to discuss treatment of prisoners of war. Is that just, in advance of something that might happen, or?
You'd really have to ask the State Department. That would be my surmise.
General, we've had some conflicting, confusing reports about exactly what is the current capability of the Iraqi Air Force. Could you give us an update on what you believe has been done by the coalition forces to the Iraqi Air Force and its operational abilities? We've also heard reports that they're using highways since they can't use runways. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, first, I think that we have the capability to gain and maintain air superiority in any sector of Iraq in which we wish to operate. They have moved, as you may know, some of their aircraft further north. They have always had plans to use sections of highways as dispersal airfields. Many nations do that. I think the air campaign vis-a-vis the Iraqi Air Force is going quite well, going just about the way we expected it to, and we're satisfied with the results. They are not bearding us very much.
Old Black Joe, just as though you had me on your